all the animals on the ship work to bring the two up onto the deck later that day, and the two of them meet. Strangely enough, there are no other people on the said deck. Connor states that if they kiss and their souls are united, then Juan would be able to talk to animals as well.
If their souls are truly united, he'll be able to speak to us too.
So let me clarify this for everyone who's wondering what the hell is happening. After looking at each other for no more than 10 seconds, a creepy guy who loves stealing and smelling young girls' gloves and a rich girl are deemed to be destined to be together forever as soulmates, all the while encouraged by a group of furry animals who barely even know them at all, and yet somehow this threatens a plan by evil people who are cheesier than craft singles who want to get whaling rights to hunt whales and dolphins that you can talk to through magic moonbeams. Oh, and we also have a gang of criminal talking sharks to aid them. Oh, and there's a plot about the sinking of the Titanic somewhere in there. You know, at this point, I think that the animators are trying to make this film as stupid and ridiculous as possible. There just really isn't any other explanation.
The animals also have a mouse orchestra play, where the music playing does not match up with the instruments being used to serenade the couple. Well, this plan works shockingly well. The two start falling in love, dance with each other, and to top it off, they kiss! I mean, they've only met once, barely glanced at one another the first time they saw each other, know absolutely nothing about each other, including each other's names, and have only spoken one sentence between them. Somehow, Titanic The Legend Goes On is more credible than this.
I don't know how to thank you, my friends. You've made me the happiest man in the whole world.
Why is the guy not surprised by all these little animals waving at him, wearing shirts and pants, playing instruments and dancing as well? Anyway, it all ends with another musical number. This time playing swing music that wouldn't be invented until the 1950s, while everyone else dances to it.
You know, at this point, I'm beginning to wish that Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold attacked Mondo TV Studios instead of Columbine. Ugh. Oh, and that being said, I should mention a subplot that seems to have been forgotten somewhere in this movie. It is strongly implied that Connors and Stella have a romantic relationship going on, but the sheer amount of time he spends with her brother, coupled by the fact that he slow dances with him and is really touchy-touchy, you would swear that these two were gay.
Later, Elizabeth finally stands up to her stepmother about not marrying Maltravers.
I trust I've been clear enough.
Come on now, please, be calm, my dear.
If Mr. Maltravers is so important to you, then you marry him.
Oh, your impertinence is intolerable.
Her father later consoles her and tells her that she has his blessing and that he's happy with the man she's fallen in love with. Even though he's never met the guy! Continuing on, the evil stepmother informs Maltravers about how Elizabeth and Juan have fallen in love, illogical as that is, and it will ruin their plans. But Maltravers is not done yet. He puts forward a plan to force Duke Camden to sign over the whaling rights at gunpoint, which he does, and then sink the ship at midnight to cover his tracks. The mice overhear this, and thwart his plans by cutting the telegraph wires so Maltravers cannot signal his men to begin hunting the whales. Let's just hope this won't backfire on you in any way. Anyway, underwater, Mr. Ice and his sharks have located a giant...
Casper, the friendly octopus?
Casper, the friendly ghost, the friendliest ghost you know.
The octopus's name is Tentacles, and the sharks convince him to take a huge chunk of ice and see how far he could throw it. He does this, and it turns out that that chunk of ice was the iceberg that sank the Titanic. Let me put this in other words. The reason the Titanic sank was because a guy with an eye patch wanted whaling rights but couldn't get them. So, he decided to get a gang of talking sharks to help him sink the Titanic in a terroristic plot to get his rights. The sharks would then trick an octopus to move the iceberg into the Titanic's path so it'll sink. Wow. Wow. That is the biggest, and I mean biggest, epic failure of a plot revolving around a real-life tragedy that I have ever heard. And mind you, this is a film for the easily susceptible minds of children.
Christ almighty in heaven. Why, Italy? Why? Why did you have to make such horrible, over-the-top, ridiculous, mind-numbing cartoons about the Titanic sinking? To quote the Nostalgia Critic, this cartoon goes from stupid to disgustingly insulting.
So, anyway, Maltravers and company forced Duke Camden to sign documents giving them both the whaling rights and control over his estate, and then tie him up. They attempt to steal a lifeboat and slip away before the collision with the iceberg, which Tentacles does absolutely nothing about except mope and whine, but are discovered by a pack of dogs and the captain, who is historically not even on the bridge when tragedy struck. By the way, why on earth would humans steal a tiny lifeboat in the middle of the freezing Atlantic Ocean with no food or water or basic necessities and only relying on a group of sharks to lead them to land? I mean, that's too risky if you ask me. But then again, this entire film was risky to begin with. Disaster strikes from the Titanic being unable to turn in time because of the sharks holding the rudder in place, which is physically impossible. Everyone is in a panic. While they pile into the 20 lifeboats that are somehow supposed to fit 2,223 people on them, despite having a total capacity of 1,178 passengers, Elizabeth and Juan frantically search for her father as the ship fills with water. The mice decide to send an SOS, but cannot do so because they cut the wires previously. But fortunately for them, a fat French mouse is there to reconnect the wires using the ends of his mustache, apparently sacrificing his life in the process.
Oh, Camembert, what a hero.
Yeah, suicide, for kids.
So back to the self-pity party. Tentacles finally comes to his senses, saves the dolphins from the sharks, and swims up to the surface to hold the Titanic together as it is splitting in two so everyone could get off. Gee, remember that from the history books, folks? The Titanic and all its passengers were saved by the freaking Kraken! Because of this, everyone, including the captain, is able to get safely off of the ship. For some reason, Juan, Elizabeth, and company remain on board to thank Tentacles as the whales arrive to help with the rescue efforts. Unfortunately, Tentacles loses his grips and goes back under.
Okay, since when does an octopus have to take a breath before going underwater? They just didn't care!
But sadly, he is unable to prevent the ship from going under, and as the vessel slips beneath the waves, the humans and animals resolve to jump so they do not get sucked down.
Don't be afraid. Hold on. Ready?
I'm not afraid as long as I'm with you.
You don't know him!
They fall hundreds of feet into the frigid waters, survive the plunge, and are rescued by a whale. Tragedy averted.
I seriously cannot imagine anyone taking a bigger piss on the graves of the people who really perished on the Titanic disaster. It is clear that Mondo TV Studios have zero sympathy for this disaster or the passengers that died. I never thought anyone could sink so low in this animation department. And no, that was not a pun.
Several days later, Juan and Elizabeth and Ronnie and Stella are all married in an elaborate ceremony in a church, but it seems there is a big surprise for all of them in the harbor. I wonder what it could be.
Hi, people!
Ah! He's still alive? Wait, so the morbidly obese mouse didn't die after all? How the hell did he survive being electrocuted and sinking to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean? What, did Atlanteans come to save him?
But thankfully it all ends there, with the story fast-forwarding back to the present time with Connors and his grandkids. And old Stella comes in and tells the kids that
Your grandfather loves to tell stories, but like all sailors, you shouldn't take him too seriously.
And I love to think what that implies about this entire movie. And so ends part 2 of the Italian Trinity of WTF. This has got to be one of the biggest abominations ever put to paper and animated. This literally makes me sick to look at. I mean, can you see why this is so much worse than Titanic: The Legend Goes On? It's unoriginal, it barely has any plot, stupid characters that no one can care about, it is downright insulting to history and to everyone who watches. And this was a success in Italy? Why? I mean, was this revenge for Britain invading Italy during World War II? I mean, them making fun of one of their tragedies and enjoying it? I mean, though I must give credit to the end song, which is the only redeemable thing about this disgusting waste of time and paper. In conclusion, I give this movie an F. And I swear to God, if I see that octopus tentacles one more time, I'm gonna kill someone.